back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for
keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Wednesday, December 18th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So, let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to start off by talking about the news that broke last night that the Falcons have made a quarterback change. They have benched Kirk Cousins for rookie Michael Penix Jr. in the final 3 games that we have left in the regular season. The Falcons still in a position where they can catch up to the Buccaneers if the Buccaneers slip up and still win the division and make the playoffs. So they indeed went and made a quarterback change. So we're going to talk about that in just a second. Then in the second part of the show, we will also talk about some more quarterback stuff. We're going to talk about the Jets. We talked about them yesterday with the Bill Belichick stuff. But we're going to get into discussing Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams and their performance on Sunday against the Jaguars. The Jets finally picked up a win. So I wanted to talk about that and whether or not now the conversation maybe has changed on whether the Jets should bring back Aaron Rodgers if he wants to play. We'll get into that discussion in the second part of the show. Then we're also going to talk about the Dolphins-Texans game. I'll talk to you guys also about the wide receiver Grant DuBose, who got injured in that game as well. Updates on him. Positive updates, which is good news. And then we'll also talk about the Giants and their most latest loss to the Ravens now. Lamar Jackson, 5 touchdown passes in the game. And we'll talk about a conversation that we've had several times is, are Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll going to be back? And we'll discuss it. We'll talk about that. And then in the final part of the show, I will do my power rankings by ranking the top 5 teams after Week 15. And it has changed. The top 5 has changed. Teams have moved around a little bit. So we'll get into that. Because I know the last couple weeks, they remain the same. This week, there's been a shift in those rankings. So we'll talk about that as well. But let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the Falcons and their decision to bench Kirk Cousins for Michael Penix. And based off of Raheem Morris's comments after the game the other night, it seemed like, there was no guarantee that Kirk Cousins was going to be starting this upcoming week. And it was made official last night. Falcons indeed benched Kirk Cousins, and Michael Penix Jr. will be making his first career start on Sunday against the Giants. And this looks bad on the Falcons' part, first of all, because they brought Kirk Cousins in, and then they drafted Michael Penix. They gave Kirk Cousins a 4-year contract with $100 million guaranteed. And in the beginning of the season, it looked like, all right, so far so good. Kirk Cousins put together some good performances, although a couple of them came against the Buccaneers, and then, against some other teams he struggled. Like in the beginning of his very first game against the Steelers, he struggled. But, the beginning of the year, he was looking okay. But then things started to go downhill. And especially when you look at the game against the Chargers and this past week against the Raiders, the Falcons I guess, felt inclined to make a move. Because the Chargers game, he threw 4 interceptions. And some of them, were just, the one he threw up into the end zone, and, the Chargers player came down with it. Again, I brought up jackpot. It was like that. He was just throwing it up to see, and whoever caught it, won the jackpot. And then the pick six, I mean, that was kind of a lob. There was no force on that throw. And then you look at what happened the other night. Yeah, the Falcons won, but they ran the ball 37 times. He threw a touchdown pass finally, but he also threw an interception. And, there's people talking about the confidence level with Kirk Cousins. Is he a guy that just has lost confidence? And it's possible. He's coming off of a major injury. It's definitely a combination of different things. A new team, it's a combination of things, I believe. But I don't know. And then you see how, and we're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers in the next segment. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is older than him. And look at Aaron Rodgers, these past couple of games. It's interesting to see that. So I think whether it's the injury or if it's confidence, I mean, I guess maybe it is confidence. I mean, Kirk Cousins now in his last, I think, 4 games has 1 touchdown pass to 9 interceptions. Yeah, I mean, that's going to affect you mentally. And the Falcons, right now, they're saying, look, we still got a chance at this thing. We got to make a change. And they're hoping that Michael Penix can provide the spark for the offense and get them going. So maybe they can win these final 3 games here, and maybe the Buccaneers slip up and they're able to get into the playoffs with their rookie quarterback. Now, these final 3 games, you got the Giants, you got the Panthers, and then in between that, you got the Commanders. The Commanders is the toughest game left on the schedule. But I think, even with Michael Penix Jr., it could be a close game on Sunday, but I do think the Falcons should still win. And the Panthers game could be a little dicey because, they've played better as of late, although Sunday against the Cowboys was not good. So, you win those games. The toughest game left is the Commanders game, which actually that game got flexed into Sunday night. So that's going to be a primetime game. So, we're going to get a good look at Michael Penix. And we'll see if he rises to the occasion. But with the Falcons, though, back to what I was saying in the beginning, this contract does not look good. And the Falcons got blasted for how they handled the quarterback situation before the year started. You signed Kirk Cousins to that big contract, and then you go and you draft your future. I mean, it kind of looks bad right now. They should have went one way or the other. Now, you got Michael Penix on the roster at least, so, I guess, in a way it's good because, if you sign Kirk Cousins and then, you didn't draft a quarterback, well, then you're kind of just stuck with what you got and you can't really make a change. They could at least make a change here by putting him in. But now looking back, then you probably should have just drafted a quarterback. You should have just drafted him. I mean, look at how this rookie draft class has performed so far. It's going to be one of the better rookie draft classes. And, maybe if Michael Penix started from week 1 and you just never went to Kirk Cousins, who knows? Maybe he does play well. And the Falcons are, still in a good position. I don't know. I'm just saying. It's hypothetical. But that was probably Kirk Cousins' last game as a Falcon. Now, I still think he's got some gas left in the tank. I mean, he threw for 500 yards in a game. He's still got something left. It's just, coming off of the injury, maybe this just wasn't a good fit for him. And there's going to be a team out there that's going to need a quarterback. There's always teams out there that need quarterbacks. And there will definitely be a team that takes a chance on him. So, yeah, it didn't work out. But there's a team that will bring him in. The contract is the big thing. Because somebody has to take it. Unless, there's a Russell Wilson situation where the Steelers have him on the veterans minimum and the Falcons and the Broncos are paying most of his salary. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But, yeah, definitely a little surprising. But like I said, based off of what Raheem Morris said in his press conference, it wasn't a guarantee that Kirk Cousins was going to start, and he's not going to. So I'm curious to see how Michael Penix does. He has played a little bit during the year, but very little, in mop-up time. He did play a little bit against the Broncos when the Falcons got blown out. There was another game he came in. I forget off the top of my head what game it was. Might have been the Seahawks game. But, yeah. No, this is what we got going into Sunday. And this is a winnable game for them. The Giants are one of the worst teams in football, and we'll talk about them later in the show. If not the worst team in football. So I would say this is, in terms of the opponent, it's the right time. But in terms of what's going on with the playoff picture, might be a little bit questionable. But, again, Kirk Cousins is not playing good. So you have to they felt they had to make a change. And this was their option. So let's see what Michael Penix does. I mean, he got time to sit this year behind Kirk Cousins. Let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes. Let me know what you guys think, though, about this move by the Falcons. Do you think this was the right move? Do you think this is the last time we see Kirk Cousins in a Falcons uniform? I think so, but let me know what you guys think in the comments. So we are going to take our first break, rather. And then when we come back, we're going to discuss another quarterback. We're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams. We'll talk about the Jets' win over the Jaguars and kind of revisit this conversation on whether Aaron Rodgers should come back to the Jets next year. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to now get into talking about the Jets and their win over the Jaguars, as well as talking about Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams and whether they should be back with the Jets or not next year. And we've had this conversation numerous times, but now, I mean, the NFL is a week-to-week thing. And Aaron Rodgers is playing healthy right now. He has probably looked the best he has looked since the beginning of the year. And, the Jets finally pick up a win. Now, people could say, and I said this yesterday, well, they beat the Jaguars. I get it. But, you saw what this tandem is capable of doing. And Davante Adams, he still got it. He almost had 200 yards receiving in this game. He had 2 touchdowns. He actually didn't even have a catch in the first half, which is unbelievable. But they were on the same page in this game, or at least in the second half. And it does make you pause for a second and think, could they run it back? Now, I think the only scenario, I think, in which they both come back, because Davante's going to come back if Rodgers comes back. If not, then who knows? I think you need to bring in a coach and a GM that want him, and I've said that. And I think also Rodgers has to be okay with being the bridge guy, because the Jets, they need a future plan at quarterback, because Rodgers is not going to be around forever. And who knows? This could be his last year. He could walk away. But if he does come back, if he does want to play still, which I think a part of him does, I think he's kind of, he's got one side of him that wants to play, the other that wants to retire. I mean, that's kind of how it's been the last few years. But if he does want to come back, the Jets need to have a plan at quarterback. Now, there are people talking about Jordan Travis, and maybe he could be the guy, still working his way back from his injury that he suffered last year. So, yeah, maybe that's a plan. Or, in this upcoming draft, maybe you take a chance on somebody. Maybe if it's not with the first pick you have, maybe you take somebody in the second or the third round. Something. But for me, the biggest problem with the Jets, and I've said it constantly, is coaching. If the Jets could get the right head coach in here that could fix the defense, because the defense, once again, was a problem on Sunday. I mean, you let Mac Jones do whatever he wanted against this defense. If you can bring somebody in here that can fix the defense, and you bring in coordinators that, can change this offense up, I mean, I think the Jets could be, decent next year. I mean, I said that this year, and look what happened. But, again, I constantly kept saying I knew what I was getting myself into. And it went completely sideways this season for the Jets. But it's just, you kind of fall into this trap, though, because, again, Aaron Rodgers has looked good recently. But that doesn't mean we go into next year and it's going to carry over. Because he could get hurt again. Now, the offensive line has been playing good. It seems like the Jets have kind of figured it out there. And, if you run it back next year, you'll have Davante for a full year. You got another year to try to build this rapport with Garrett Wilson, even though there's rumors that maybe he wants to be traded after the season. The running backs they have are pretty good. I think, they need to get a tight end. Sorry, I'll hold him back. A sneeze again, of course. That always happens at least once. But I do think that there's potential. I mean, there's potential going in this year. There's a lot of talent on this team. It's just, like I said, everything went sideways. But if you can get the right head coach in here and a legit head coach that's going to fix this team, and maybe Aaron Rodgers kind of takes a step back, I think they could be decent next year. I really do believe that. Because they have the talent. But if they run it back next year, don't expect me to give the Jets 11 wins. It's not happening. They'd have to show me. But, I mean, you look at Aaron Rodgers' numbers, and look, I'm not trying to say he's been spectacular this year, because he's had some bad moments. I get it. But Aaron Rodgers this year, I actually went to the Packers score instead. Aaron Rodgers on the year, I think he has 23 touchdowns. Yeah, 23 touchdowns to 8 picks. He's probably going to finish, around 4,000 yards passing. He's going to finish close to 30 touchdown passes. With 3 to go, he's going to be close to 30. I mean, overall, season's not been bad. But there's been a lot of bad games, sprinkled in there. Well, not a lot, but there's been some. I mean, the Cardinals game was not good. Looking at that now. The Vikings game when he had 3 picks, although they still had a chance to win that game. Denver game was not good. But, again, I mean, these last 2 games, he threw for 300 yards last week. He threw for almost 300 this week. If you protect him, I mean, he's still got... The arm talent is still there. The mobility has kind of returned as well. He had to run around... He ran around a little bit. Obviously, it's not like what it was, 10 years ago. But, he's healthier. So, we'll have to see how it goes. But, yeah, I'm happy that, him and Devontae, they looked good. They looked good on Sunday. It was reminiscent to what they did in Green Bay. So, I'm hoping that, maybe they do run it back so we get to see, a full year. But, who knows? Who knows what ends up happening? So, yeah, no, it was nice to see that. And like I said, Devontae still has, something left in the tank. He does. And, we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. There's still 3 games left. And I did say that depending on, how Aaron Rodgers plays, maybe the Jets kind of rethink, hey, maybe we could run it back with him. And so far these last 2 games, he's played well. And the Jets should have beat the Dolphins. Now, they could have lost this game, too. Kind of similar to what happened in the Dolphins game, although it didn't backfire. The Jets, they could have just kneeled it down and kicked the game-winning field goal. Although, again, with the Jets, you never know. I mean, Carlson could have shanked it or something, and then we go to overtime again. But, they went for the touchdown at the end. Braylon Allen scored. They got it. And then Mac Jones and the Jaguars offense, they looked like they were going to tie the game driving down the field. And then actually, Sauce Gardner got an interception. So, that was good to see that. And Mac Jones actually finished on the day 31 of 46 for 294 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. The Jaguars got the ball to start off the game, and they went right down the field. And Mac Jones had never lost to the Jets until that game. Because, of all those games against the with the Patriots. But yeah, no, the Jets actually beat Mac Jones. It wasn't easy because, the Jets defense has not been good. So, yeah, no, we will we'll see how the rest of the season pans out for the Jets, but you got the Rams coming up. That's going to be a tough game. The Bills, and then you got the Dolphins to finish up the season. Now, if Rodgers plays well in all 3 of those games, and even if they lose, I mean, I think you really got to consider, maybe we run it back one more time. One more. Bring in the right head coach. Because if you bring in a veteran guy, and I said the same thing about Belichick, they might not necessarily want a rebuild. They maybe could want Rodgers for, one more year. and try to win. And then you worry about the future if he decides to retire. I think that's how you got to look at it. But also, again, does Rodgers want to come back? And right now, we don't know. We have no idea. So, we'll see what happens. Again, it was nice to see Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers. You know, it was like it was a flashback, you know, to their prime years in Green Bay. And you could see and look, they're still able to do it. Again, not against a good defense, but I think you still got to take it into some consideration. At least look at the fact that Rodgers looks healthier. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I think it's definitely possible that these two guys are back. I think, Jet fans should at least want Davante Adams back. I mean, you have him and Garrett Wilson. I mean, it's a nice tandem you got there. That's up there with one of the best duos in the NFL. So, we'll see what happens, but let me know what you guys think. Should the Jets bring back Aaron Rodgers if he wants to come back? Again, we're going to continue to have this conversation. Probably going to have it again one or two more times. But I think based on how he's playing, if you get the right regime in here, it could work. Because I do think the number one problem with the Jets this year was coaching. And yeah, Aaron Rodgers has not been great, like I said, but I think he's not one, he's not even two, I don't think. Because I think the defense has been the bigger issue this year. Because they blew games late. But, yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Like I said, let me know what you guys think. So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So when we come back from our next break, we will talk about the Dolphins-Texans game. I'll give you guys an update on Grant DuBose, the wide receiver. So make sure to stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to now get into talking about the Texans and their win over the Dolphins. And also, I wanted to talk about the injury of Grant DuBose, the wide receiver for the Dolphins. And there's a positive update regarding him. So, yeah, he got sent to the hospital, of course, after the helmet-to-helmet collision during the game, and that, required a stoppage in the game. Because I didn't see it happen live, because I was, following on the fantasy app, and I saw that the game was delayed, and I was confused by that. And then, when I saw in Red Zone what had happened, then it made sense. But as of a couple days ago, well, this is on December 16th. So yeah, he has movement in all extremities, and initial tests have revealed positive results. He remains under the care of doctors for continued observation. I was trying to see if there were any more updates with that, but at least the news is positive because it was a scary situation. And so, yeah, just hoping that, he's back, and everything's okay there. I mean, the Dolphins did put him on, I think, season-ending IR. So, but yeah, just a scary situation there, and hoping for the best for him. But at least we got some positive news there. But yeah, it's a scary situation. We see this, a lot in the NFL. It's a dangerous sport. And, when something like this happens, you realize, these guys aren't immortal. They're human beings. And, this was another case of that on Sunday. But, it seems like there's positive news on that front, and, wishing him a speedy recovery. So, but with the game, though, I mean, the Dolphins, they have to win out. And they really could not get anything going offensively. Tua Tagovailoa struggled in this game, under 200 yards passing. He had 3 picks in this game. Derek Stingley, 2 interceptions. He had the game-sealing pick at the end. I mean, the Dolphins had a chance to go down the field and tie it, but, that didn't happen. They really couldn't run the ball on Sunday. Their leading receiver ended up being Malik Washington. Tyreek Hill, 2 receptions for 36 yards. Jalen Waddle actually got hurt in this game. He only had 2 targets, didn't have a catch. Jonnu Smith had their only touchdown. He continues to produce for them. The Dolphins' defense had 4 sacks. They played well. They kept him in the game. And, C.J. Stroud, yeah, he only had 131 passing yards. He had 2 touchdowns, and they were both to Nico Collins, who only had 4 receptions for 17 yards. But the Texans really couldn't run the ball either. 77 yards on the ground. Joe Mixon only had 23 yards rushing. And he was their leading receiver. He had 33 yards receiving. The Dolphins punted on their first possession. The Texans, they scored on their first possession. A Kaimi Fairbairn 44-yard field goal. Later in the first quarter, Jason Sanders, he kicked a 55-yarder. Then the Dolphins fumbled in the second quarter, and that led to a Texans touchdown. That was to Nico Collins. And then the Dolphins kicked a field goal. Then the Texans fumbled. They fumbled at around midfield, but Tua immediately threw a pick after that. And the Texans turned that into 3 points. So it was 13-6 at the half. Then it was 20-6. This was Nico Collins' second touchdown. And then we had the Jonnu Smith touchdown to respond to that. And I think they actually... did the Dolphins go for 2? They missed the extra point. They missed the extra point. Then the Texans punted, and then Tua threw another pick. Yeah, they got down to the Houston 20, but then Tua was trying to hit Tyreek Hill, and he got intercepted by Stingley the first time. And then a lot of 3 punts in the fourth quarter. Tua then threw a pick on the Dolphins' final possession, and the Texans ran it down. So the Dolphins are now 6-8, and yeah, they're not making the playoffs. They're not. They would need a lot of things to go right for them. It's not going to happen. And Tua, for the most part, since he's come back, has played well. He did not play well in this game. And, you kind of look at the games that they won since he came back. They beat the Cardinals. Well, actually, no, they lost to the Cardinals. They lost to the Cardinals by a point. They lost to the Bills. They beat the Rams. But you look at the teams that they beat. Other than the Rams, they beat the Raiders, not a good football team. They beat the Patriots, not a good football team. And they beat the Jets, who aren't a good football team. And they had to go into overtime with the Jets. And the teams that they lost to, Cardinals are fighting for a playoff spot. The Bills are one of the best teams in the NFL. The Packers are playing really well. And then you got the Texans, who are going to be AFC South champions. This is what we're talking about, though, with the Dolphins, is against these better teams, they just don't rise up. And Tua had some interesting comments at the end of the game because he talked about, players, planning their trips in season while, the season is still going on. And he said, that really shows you, that really shows some players' true colors and how they, what their where their state of mind is at the moment. I gotta look up what he said. I gotta find the direct quote for it. But yeah, I mean, look, the Dolphins, they started playing better when Tua came back, but against some of these teams, these better teams, like, you gotta beat them. Now, the Bills game, that came down to a game-winning field goal. But against the Packers, you really were never in it. Texans, I mean, it was a close game, but Tua threw 3 picks. You can't have that happen. But next year they're going to run it back. And, I did play with the idea of, well, Tua got hurt. Now he came back late. Maybe the Dolphins will put together a late run, to maybe make the playoffs. But it's not going to happen. I think this was it. I'm trying to see. No, he was just, Tua said at the end of the game, plain and simple, just my fault. I got to protect the ball. I got to play better ball for our guys, especially in a situation where the team is counting on me to go and drive our offense down to potentially time the game up, and that's not what I did. That's not how you win games in the league. Very disappointed with how I played today and with how I conducted myself on the field with our guys, with our team. I just need to be better in all aspects with that. But I wanted to find what he said about some of his teammates, because it was interesting what he said. Let me see if I can find it. Oh yeah, so all right, so here it is. This is from 3 days ago. So he said, I can find the quote. He said, "This team loves to play the game. We don't take this game for granted. So for us to say, oh, let's go plan our trip to Cabo or plan our trip to Mexico, you really started to see the guys that want to be in our locker room and want to play for each other." So, yeah. I guess that's what he was trying. Well, yeah, you really start to see the guys that want to be in our locker room and want to play for each other. I mean, yeah, if he was trying to say, like, guys are, thinking about planning trips already when the season's not over yet, yeah, you see players' true colors. Now they kind of just gave up on the season. If that is what he's trying to say, that's how it came across. But yeah, no, the Dolphins, it was a disappointing year. I mean, had Tua not gotten hurt, I mean, they definitely would be in the playoff conversation. But it's just, he came back, and the Dolphins had to be perfect in this final stretch of games to make the playoffs. And it's just not going to happen. So they're going to run it back next year. If Tua stays healthy the whole year, I expect them to be in the mix for the playoffs. But, yeah, no, it's just, I mean, they need a lot of things to go right for them to make it. They need to win out, and then they need a ton of help, which I don't think they're going to get it. So, yeah, no, disappointing season for them. For the Texans, C.J. Stroud still doesn't look great. Now Joe Mixon's been having trouble running the football recently, so, that hurts them. But you know what? This defense is still good. So I think this team is still dangerous come playoff time, but they got to start showing it. You got the division. You're going to host a playoff game, but it's going to be against a tough opponent. You could be playing against the Ravens in the first round, or the Steelers, or, the Chargers or the Broncos. One of those, that's going to be a tough game. So, but at least, like, in the first round, they'll have it at home. But, if this team is going to have to go on the road, and, we saw what happened last year when they played the Ravens on the road in the playoffs. They got blown out. And I kind of expect the same thing, the way they've been. I still think they're a good team, but I don't think they're in that championship tier. I don't even think they're in the second tier. I think they're in, the third tier, if you were to rank the playoff teams right now. Because they've been disappointing. I did expect more from them. I mean, the Stephon Diggs injury, I think, hurt them because he was playing well for them. And if you had him with Nico Collins and Tank Dell, I mean, that's, it's one of the best trios in the NFL. But, now they're down to just Nico Collins and Tank Dell. And Nico Collins has looked good since he's come back. But you got to get this running game going again, and you got to hope that C.J. Stroud, steps up his game. So, yeah, no, but the Texans, they got the win. They're AFC South champs, or they're going to be AFC South champs. They're not blowing this lead. So yeah, no, we'll see what happens. Yeah, no, they are AFC South champs. They did officially clinch. And we got S Coleman 825 in the chat. He says, "Do you think Penix will be a shoe-in for the QB?" Well, I mean, he is starting, so. Yeah, I mean, let's see how he does these final 3 games here. And he had time to sit behind Kirk Cousins, which I think definitely helped him out. So, and you got the Giants as your first game, which I think he should play well in. But we'll have to wait and see. But, yeah, let me know what you guys think, though, about this game, the Texans-Dolphins game. Like I said, disappointing season for the Dolphins. But, a lot of it had to do with Tua getting hurt. And how would this season have played out had he not gotten hurt? They definitely would have won a few more games, and they'd be in a good position right now. But unfortunately, he got hurt, and, you had to basically win out. And you went against some tough teams, and you couldn't get it done. Against the Bills, against the Packers, against the Texans, those 3 teams are making the playoffs. And the Dolphins went 0-3 against them. And then you also lost to the Cardinals, too, which I think I don't know how they lost that game, but they did. And the Cardinals aren't a bad team, but, I think the Dolphins should have beat them. But, yeah, no, we'll see what happens, and we'll see, if C.J. Stroud and that offense can turn it up. These final 3 weeks, they got a tough game on Saturday against the Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes could play. He was a full participant in practice. So maybe he does play. We'll have to keep an eye on it when we preview that game on Friday. But, yeah, no, the Texans, they are AFC South champs once again. And we'll see if they can maybe try to improve their seeding, these final few weeks. But I think they're going to be locked into the 4 when it's all said and done. So we're going to take our next break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the Giants. We'll talk about the Ravens winning 35-14 over them, and revisit that conversation on should Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen be back. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC. To access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we are now going to talk about the Giants-Ravens game and talk about whether the head coach Brian Daboll and general manager Joe Schoen should be back. And, yeah, so the Giants, the quarterback situation has been a mess all year. Daniel Jones started the year, and we went from Tommy DeVito to Drew Lock, back to Tommy DeVito, and then, Drew Lock got hurt. Well, Tommy DeVito and Drew Lock both got hurt, and then we had Tim Boyle playing at one point in this game on Sunday. I couldn't believe it. This season has been a mess for the Giants, and this is their 100th year celebration. And I went to the first game of the year where they honored all the great Giant players at halftime. That was probably the highlight of the season, honestly, was that. Just honoring your past players. And it's just, this season has been a colossal disappointment. Now, I didn't have high expectations going into the season. I keep saying that. I said 7 wins. I thought 7 wins was good enough. But boy, was I wrong. And it was a roller coaster because after the first game, I thought, I'd be surprised if they win 2 games. Then all of a sudden, they beat Seattle in Seattle, and you're like, oh, maybe they can be competitive. And then it's just they haven't won a game since. So, I don't know what to make of this team. Actually, no, I do know what to make of this team. This team is not good. This team is going to be picking in the top 2 in the NFL draft. And, Lamar Jackson, 5 touchdown passes in this game. They actually, did a good job at limiting Derrick Henry. But you know why? Because Lamar Jackson just kept throwing it against his secondary. You got all these guys starting in the secondary that you never heard of because of the injuries that they're dealing with. They got a ton of injuries right now. But even if the guys that, start for this team were playing, Lamar Jackson still would have carved this team up. I mean, Rashad Bateman scores that touchdown. He makes 2 juke moves and scores. It's just been a disappointing season. And this is how far a game like this shows you how far away the Giants are. Because they are just against these better teams they're non-competitive. The Buccaneers, who are going to make the playoffs most likely, 30-7. Ravens 35-14. That's what it's been since you let go of Daniel Jones. Because at least, against the Steelers, they lost by 8. Well, then again, you lost to Philly by 25. The Vikings, you lost by 28. Well, you lost 28-6. Commanders, both games are close, but Daniel Jones is usually good against the Commanders. Look, I'm not. Don't take this as me trying to justify them keeping Daniel Jones. No, they did the right thing with Daniel Jones. However, Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, nothing was going to happen from this. Nothing. Against the Saints, they could have won, but they didn't. But against these teams that are, these very good teams, they're just non-competitive for the most part. And yeah, I think they gotta start over. They gotta let go of both Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. And I was on the fence with it because I still think they should keep them around and just see what they do with the quarterback position. Who they end up taking and how they look when they take the guy that they want. But I mean, if you finish the season with 2 wins, you got to make changes. And the Giants, once again, are going to have to enter that arena of looking for a new head coach and looking for a new GM again, because it just seems like it'll never end. Just like the Jets, both New York teams, it's the same thing. The same thing. And you go back to the 2022 season. That year, despite the surprise success, that year set them back. It set them back. Because Daniel Jones wins that playoff game, and you're thinking, all right, well, we're going to give him a contract because the quarterback position is the most important position on the football team. We're going to franchise tag Saquon Barkley, and let's run it back in 2023. And then guess what happens? You go 6-11. Daniel Jones gets hurt, tears his ACL, has another neck injury, and then you let Saquon Barkley go. Which I still think was the right move, but still, I mean, the way this year has played out looks horrible. The Giants going on Hard Knocks does not look good at all. And it's bad, though, because watching that, I thought, all right, they have an idea of what they want to do. But this season has been a disaster. And I watched a video on the breakdown of Joe Schoen's drafts. A lot of misses. A lot of misses. And the top players on this team are not even Joe Schoen's players. You know, like Andrew Thomas before he got hurt, that's a Gettleman pick. Dexter Lawrence is a Gettleman pick. You know, Saquon Barkley and Xavier McKinney were some of the best players on this team. And you let them go. Those are also Gettleman players. Well, Barkley, I mean, you know, the Giants shouldn't have taken him with the second pick. But that's a different story. But a lot of these players, yeah, I mean, you know, yeah, you brought in Bobby Okereke, who's a good player. You traded for Brian Burns. You drafted Malik Neighbors. But, you know, Kayvon Thibodeau hasn't been what the Giants were hoping for. Evan Neal, that's been a flop. Jalen Hyatt has been a non-factor on this team. Yeah, it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. And I didn't think David Gettleman was that good of a GM. But you know what? He drafted good players. They're good players. They were good players on this team that he drafted. His free agencies were really bad. But he did draft some good players. So, yeah, no, it just looks bad. And at this point, you just got to start over again. I was hoping that this was going to be it. And, you know, it happened the last time, too, with Joe Judge. I'll be honest. Like, during the COVID season, the Giants were competitive in a lot of games. And you thought, okay, they could build off of this. And then they had a bad year. And then, you know, the Giants make the playoffs with Daboll. And I felt different. I thought, all right, they are going to build this team up. And this is going to be a good team. But they let guys go that maybe they shouldn't have let go. And these last 2 years have been tough. It's been downhill since 2022. And, you know, that's the second time that I've gotten fooled. But I don't know. I don't know. So for me, you know, whatever the Giants decide to do, the only way that I will buy back into the Giants is sustainability. If the Giants' next regime comes in, if that's what they end up doing, nothing's been made official yet. If the next regime for the Giants comes in and they make the playoffs their first year, doesn't matter to me. It needs to be sustained. You can't just make the playoffs 1 year and then you guys are them. You can't do it. Can't do it. You gotta make the playoffs your first year and your second year. And, well, again, it depends on how it goes. But still, sustainability. You can't be taking steps back. Look at Ben McAdoo. He made the playoffs his first year. Look what happened the following season. Pat Shurmur, it never worked out. You know, he was here for, 1 year? Yeah. Actually, no. 2 years. 2 years. 2 years. But the Giants never went anywhere. Those weren't good Giants teams. That was the back end of Eli's career. And then Daniel Jones' first year. But yeah, that didn't go anywhere. It's been the same thing over and over again. And you had another plane fly over MetLife Stadium with a message for Mara. So there's going to be pressure on him to make a move. And he's probably going to be forced to let Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll go. Now, I think Brian Daboll will find another job. But who knows? It's just, I thought, you know, especially after that first game, his first ever game where, the Giants, they won a game that they probably shouldn't have won, but they did. You know, they go for 2, they get it, they win by 1 point. You thought that things were going to change, but they haven't. It's the same thing over and over again. And that's why I'm checked out. I have been checked out with the Giants for so long. Ever since the Super Bowl. You know, like during, the mid-2010s, obviously I was still invested. But, once Eli left and just, the Ben McAdoo season, really after the 2017 season, that's when things started to trend down for me. This team does not get you excited. And again, there's some good players on this team, but they got a lot of work to do. And I don't know who's going to be making the pick. Is it going to be Joe Schoen? Is it going to be them, or is it going to be a different regime? I think at this point it's got to be a different regime because you can't win 2 games this year and justify bringing your head coach and your general manager back. You can't. So, yeah, it's been a tough year for the Giants, and it's funny how this is going to be their worst season in franchise history, when I still think that the year with Ben McAdoo or the year with Joe Judge is worse. But yeah, that's where we're at. That's where we're at. And I don't know when it's going to get better. So the Giants have an opportunity to take a quarterback. They're going to have a top 2 pick at least. So they're either going to get Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, if that's the route they go. And we'll see what happens. But this team has a lot of issues. Not just with the quarterback, but, on defense too. I mean, honestly, you look at last year, you think about what happened with Wink Martindale. It's just, there's a lot of things that just, Wink Martindale and Daniel Jones' injury, just a lot of things just unraveled. You also had, the Evan Neal comments that he made, calling out the Giant fans that were booing. And he hasn't looked good. It's just, it's been so many different things that's led to this moment. And the Giants, yeah, they're going to be picking with either 1 or 2. But who knows who's going to be making that pick. But yeah, I just, at this point, I don't think Joe Schoen or Brian Daboll are coming back. But let me know what you guys think. Should they come back? You think they will? I think at this point, they're done. So we are going to take our final break. When we come back, we will do my power rankings. And that is how we'll end off the show for today. So for one final time today, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are going to now get into my power rankings, ranking my top 5 teams after Week 15. And it's changed. It has changed. Like I said earlier in the show, last couple weeks, there wasn't any changes, but things are a little different this week. So let's kind of go through it. So at my number 5 spot, we have the Minnesota Vikings. So the Vikings are back in the top 5. They've looked good the last couple weeks. Sam Darnold, not his best game on Monday, but the week before against the Falcons, played really well. He's played well all season for the most part. And this Vikings team, right now they're 12-2. I did not expect them to be 12-2 at this point. I think I had them at 6 or 7 wins. because I just really did not expect the quarterback position. I didn't know what to expect from the quarterback position. I've said that constantly. And Sam Darnold has played really well. And I did see that there's a possibility the Vikings are open to an extension with Darnold. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes, because that's a big decision. You know, you got J.J. McCarthy, who's there that they drafted. You know, he's going to be coming back next year. So we'll see how this all plays out. But, yeah, no, the Vikings, they're looking good right now. You know, signing Aaron Jones this offseason, that's paid off. And then, obviously, you've gotten your receivers in Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. Getting T.J. Hawkinson back is huge. And the defense has played well all year. This is a good team. This is going to be a dangerous team in the playoffs. And I'm curious to see how Darnold performs when the Vikings get to the playoffs. And it's possible that they could still get the number 1 seed. You got 3 12-2 teams right now. So we'll see how it goes. But, yeah, I have them at number 5. At number 4, still got the Kansas City Chiefs. They continue to win games, 13-1 on the year. But, you know, they're not doing it in the prettiest of ways. They won that game because Jameis Winston turned the ball over. Well, the Browns as a team turned the ball over. I think there were 6 turnovers in that game from the Browns. But, yeah, Patrick Mahomes and this offense, they're still trying to figure things out. And he ended up getting hurt. So, obviously, we're going to keep an eye on that. But it's possible he does play on Saturday against the Texans. And like I've been saying, this team, when it matters most, I think is going to flip that switch. You know, you got Isaiah Pacheco back. You know, him and Kareem Hunt, that's a nice tandem you got there in the backfield. Kareem Hunt did a nice job filling in. It's possible, I think, they could get Marquise Brown back for the playoffs, so that would add another dimension to this offense. Xavier Worthy was making plays the other day. You know, DeAndre Hopkins was a good pickup. So, you know, you got Travis Kelce, and we saw how Travis Kelce did in the postseason last year when the regular season was kind of challenging for him. So, yeah, the Chiefs are going to be a tough out. And they're most likely going to have home field advantage. And if that's the case, it's going to be very tough to beat this team in Arrowhead. Very few teams have done it. And we're not going to see those teams or those players that have done it. You know, going into the season, I said Joe Burrow had the best chance to knock off Patrick Mahomes. Well, Joe Burrow and the Bengals are probably not making the playoffs. And the only other player to knock off the Chiefs in the playoffs is Tom Brady. And Tom Brady's not coming to the rescue, guys. Sorry. So, you know, the TikTok edits that we're going to see in the playoffs, you know, you're going to have to do it for Josh Allen, for Lamar Jackson, C.J. Stroud, Bo Nix, Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson. That's who you're going to be making those edits for. Now, we saw a ton of them last year in the playoffs, and the Chiefs did nothing but win and win the Super Bowl. Now, Josh Allen did get the best of Patrick Mahomes in the regular season, but now let's see what happens in the postseason. I mean, is it possible we see the Bills and the Chiefs in the playoffs again? Yeah, but it's possible that we're going to be seeing them face off in Arrowhead this time around and not in Orchard Park. But, yeah, the Chiefs, though, they got 13 wins. They're fortunate to have 13 wins because they could very easily have less than that. But you know what? Give them credit. They got 1 loss on the year. And, yeah, they're still a top 5 team. But I do think that the 3 teams ahead of them are still better. Now, you'll be surprised by this a little bit. Maybe some of you are. But I got the Lions at 3. And this has a lot to do with injuries. Now, you could call this an overreaction, but yeah, the Lions are just simply not healthy right now. And now you lost David Montgomery for the season. How are the Lions going to respond to this? I think they'll be okay. I think they'll figure it out. But, you know, I have the Lions and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and I don't feel that confident about it at the moment because of the injuries and just, you know, the Chiefs are still trying to figure it out on offense. But I do think the Lions, they'll eventually get some of these guys on defense back, and that'll help a little bit. Their offense still could put up points with anybody. Like, I know they lost David Montgomery, but at least you still have, you lost your 1B, but you still have your 1A in Jahmyr Gibbs or vice versa. You lost your 1A, but you have your 1B still. Whatever. Jahmyr Gibbs is one of the top running backs in the league. So you still have him. They could piece it together there. You still got Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta. Jared Goff is playing well. The offense can still put up points. It's just now they have to be near perfect because their defense is decimated by injuries right now. And, now they just lost a game to the Bills. And, it's possible that this team could be playing on Wild Card Weekend as a wild card team because the Vikings are tied with them and the team that I ranked ahead of them at the moment is tied with them. So, yeah, no, they got some work to do. And, you got the Vikings the final week of the season. NFC North might come down to that. And I do think, the Bears, they got to go on the road to play them this week. With the injuries they have on defense, that could be a tough game for them. They did lose in Chicago last year. And then against the 49ers. That's a road game. I mean, the Niners probably, don't really have anything to play for, but, they want to finish the season strong. And then you got the Vikings. So it's going to be a tough finish to the season for the Lions, especially with all the injuries that they're dealing with. But if there's any team that could withstand it, they're one of those teams. But yeah, I got them at 3 because right now they're dealing with a ton of injuries. 2, I got the Buffalo Bills. Another masterclass performance by Josh Allen. If he wasn't having the season that he was having, the Bills would definitely be lower. But they're winning because of Josh Allen. And he's going to win the MVP. Right now he's going to win the MVP. Lamar Jackson had a 5-touchdown performance against the Giants. He's right there too. But I think ultimately it's going to come down to Josh Allen. These final 3 games are going to be important to solidify his case, but I feel like he's continued to do that based off of how he's playing. Like even in the loss against the Rams, 6 total touchdowns. He's been on fire. And, he had a touchdown called back on Sunday where he was, it was like shooting a basketball to, one of the tight ends. And that got called back. The Bills are dealing with some injuries on defense themselves. So hopefully, they get some guys back. Because I know they had to pick up Micah Hyde again. But, we saw the running game get it going with James Cook. That's encouraging. You got Keon Coleman and Dolan Kincaid back. So, this offense is clicking. Khalil Shakir has had a nice year. Amari Cooper actually didn't do anything in the game against Detroit, but expect him to have some big games going forward here. He's going to be an important piece. The Bills are playing really well, and they're going to go as far as Josh Allen takes them. And I think, look, if this team is hosting playoff games, I love their chances to get to the Super Bowl. If they got to go to Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs, I still give them a good shot just because the Chiefs have not been the Chiefs this year. But if you can get more playoff games at home, you better your chances of getting to the Super Bowl, in my opinion. This could be the year. It definitely could be the year that the Bills finally break through and get to the Super Bowl. And before the year started, I didn't think that was the case. But it's been because of Josh Allen. He has really stepped up this year. The Bills let go of Stephon Diggs. They traded him. You lost Gabe Davis, and you had a lot of new receivers come in, but it didn't matter. Josh Allen has played. This is the best Josh Allen has played in his career. You can't say it's because of Diggs. You can't say it's because of Brian Daboll this year. It's because of Josh Allen. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL, and he's most likely going to win the MVP. So I got the Bills at 2. And then at 1, I got the Philadelphia Eagles. 12-2 on the year. They're playing good football. The passing game got it going, and that was a big criticism going into the game against the Steelers, and I was one of the people that, criticized them for it. But yeah, A.J. Brown got it going. Devontae Smith had over 100 yards receiving. Saquon Barkley under 100 yards rushing, but it's going to happen. The defense continues to play well. This is a dangerous team. Right now, because they're healthier than the Lions, that's why I got them at 1. I do think they are, right now, the best overall team on both sides of the ball. And let's see what happens come playoff time. But, yeah, no, if the passing game continues to get it going like it did on Sunday, it's going to be very tough to stop the Eagles. So, yeah, they're in the driver's seat to win the division. I think if they win on Sunday, they clinch the division. So, I think it's going to be tough against the Commanders. Jane Daniels is healthier, but I do think that they'll get it done. They'll clinch the division, and yeah, no, they're going to have a top 2 seed. Like, they're at least going to have a top 2 seed. So, yeah, that's my top 5. So to run through it again: Vikings at 5, Chiefs at 4, Lions at 3, Bills at 2, and then the Eagles at 1. Let me know what you guys think about these rankings. What would your rankings be? Let me know in the comments. And with that, that is pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the video. And until next time, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys next time. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn.